Hi, this is Bill, and I'll give you an update as to what's been happening on this magnetometer experiment called EASY. Yeah, it's an Electrojet Zeeman Imaging Explorer that's being run by the Advanced Physics Lab owned by Johns Hopkins University. So, as you know, last week we were doing a test with my Ford model or my signal model versus the one that they got from an open source, and my one fit the signal seen by the satellite perfectly, whereas the other one didn't. And boy, that was a rush. So anyway, needless to say, this was 2 weeks ago now, and it lit a fire under under these people's rears, and this is where it gets interesting. Is that have I been replaced by ChatGPT? Because I would have never thought to do this, but anyway, he went ahead and it ran the code. I mean, I'm talking about literally on Thursday, or yeah. He started even on Wednesday, Wednesday afternoon, right after he found this out. So he's running it through ChatGPT, and ChatGPT, I guess, is giving him some suggestions as to things to look for. And yes, some of them I didn't understand, so I don't understand the code that well. But actually, on I think about Thursday or Friday, he came up with a very plausible explanation. One that was so plausible that I thought, oh, okay, I'll break my code in the same fashion to see if it could reproduce his results. And so I actually did that, but in the interim, I guess, even though they thought they'd found the problem, I guess they concluded they really hadn't. But anyway, I think last Friday, no, sorry, no, they not last Friday. Yeah, it was last Friday, because now they've gone in. They've been going at this with a Chat GPT now over a week, and anyway, it looked like it was able to fix one of the problems. One of them being on the circularly polarized. The signals kind of go like this, and his model was just doing something like this, and so I guess he was able to get it to produce the signals like what the measurement's doing, and but still the Stokes 3 was in pretty bad agreement. So I think he's sort of given up on Chat GPT now. So he went to the author of the algorithm. This is a guy. He's actually living in Japan now with his wife, but he's from, I don't know, he's from Germany or Sweden. He's a European. Anyway, they had an army of these people, developing different aspects of this open source code. So anyway, I guess the latest I heard on last Friday, is that they found 3 errors in the paper and some bugs in the code, and he was supposed to get it fixed for him. He was working on it. He said he'd work on the weekend. He said he'd get it fixed for him on Monday of this week. I guess it's Wednesday today. I guess so far, I guess it isn't fixed yet. So anyway, so yeah, I guess maybe I haven't been replaced by ChatGPT yet, and I do say yet, but I was impressed at some of the things that ChatGPT was suggesting that he did do, and I guess one of them did help fix this one problem with the circularly polarized program, part of the signal. Anyway, now I'm going to go on a rant here, because we had a meeting yesterday, and actually the 2 guys that are working on the EASY project didn't come to the meeting because they were busy doing things for EASY. So anyway, so yes, we were discussing the EASY project, and I mentioned, oh yeah, they found 3 errors in the code, and they're working on it. So, or actually in the paper. So anyway, now I'm going to give you a rant about open science, which I think is a load of crap. Yeah, there's this thing called open science that we all have to, I guess, adhere to going into the future. I'm not going to adhere to it. I'm going to quit and retire before they make me do this. And I'll tell you what this is about. I lost 2 days of my life going through this open science education. Again, I think it's a load of crap. But here's the one thing. In the first 5 minutes of this course, I learned all I needed to know. And that is, they have these 2 terms for judging the goodness of your science, and basically you could think of it as reproducibility, which is what I would call a precision statement, which I'll explain in a minute, and replicability, which is what I call an accuracy statement. So reproducibility means that if somebody does the exact same thing you did, that you basically get the same result that the other person got, the person who authored the paper. Replicability means that if you look at the problem and study a different angle and come up with the same result. This is what's stupid about this is that after they defined these terms, they spent the next 2 days talking about focusing just on reproducibility, like that was the only thing that mattered. And I thought that was really stupid, because I think replicability is the end goal. I mean, it's the accuracy statement, not the precision statement, because as I say, you can very precisely get the wrong answer over and over again. And so we were talking a bit about the EASY project on Tuesday. Even those two guys weren't here, and I'd mentioned that they found a couple bugs. And so this guy who was one of the instructors for Open Science was there, and he said, well, this would not have happened if Open Science had been enacted. And I said, no. I said, this did happen because of Open Science. And I had to explain to him, because what happens is this guy published a paper, and he coded up his this open source model they call ARTS. The principal investigator for the EASY project actually wrote his own code based on that paper. So he independently developed his own code. And I mean, there were some issues, but they were able to get things sorted out. He was able to reproduce, the two results were able to reproduce each other. So they thought, okay, we're done. It passed the Open Science criteria for good science. And really, just by sheer, well, I think it's almost divine intervention, but I know some people agree with that, but just by sheer luck, that because we don't have enough money on our projects to fund us, that through the generosity of JPL, they're filling in the gaps, allowing us to work on some projects to justify this. My work colleagues say, yeah, let's do a comparison of these four models. And it took me some effort, actually, to get my Ford model to work in the EASY geometry. So he got that sorted out, and that was when we found this error, because my model fit the signals very well, and theirs don't, and so at this point, it is the case where it passed the reproducibility standard of Open Science, but it failed the replicability standard, which is what I think is what matters and what you should be aiming for. I mean, and this is big news. This was big news because JPL's reputation for instrument building was getting tarnished by this. Because they were so confident, because they were able to, have these two models reproduce each other very well. The problem's in the instrument. It's a failure of our hardware or the people that are calibrating it. Which is who the task manager was responsible for. So yeah, I love that guy. He's funding me now. Yeah, and so as I said to this guy, I said, no. I said, it's a failure of Open Science why this happened. He didn't have anything to say. So this Open Science is crazy. So if you publish a paper, you have to put all your software that you use in your analysis, the data and everything's all going to be open source and for people to look at and have access to. In other words, it's like you have to almost do what you did in such a way they can do it in a totally brain dead way. And I'm not really against doing that stuff, but I think there needs to be cause for reason behind it. And my opinion is that you really should always try to replicate a scientific result. If you can't replicate it, then we go to the reproducibility aspect, per these Open Science definitions, and see if you can find out why it's not. Find out if you can find something there that is causing the failure in replication. Oh boy, I tell you, the drama continues. So, but on off topic, municipal junk failed smog test yesterday, or actually this weekend, and that was a bite in the ass. Yeah, apparently it's burning too rich. So I took it up to the mechanic, and he says that, oh yeah, it needs a new catalytic converter, it needs a carburetor rebuild and a tune up. And he says, oh yeah, he says your truck's burning oil. I said, yeah, I know it's burning oil. So um, yeah, but yeah, this is why I feel I don't need the budget for new cars in retirement, because the amount of money I'm spending keeping my two cars running, I could buy beaters for that. So it's already kind of built into my budget, and I don't want to give up municipal junk anyway. I think it's got a lot of life in it left. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment, and have a nice evening, and good night.